Hello and welcome to Shoot the Defence Live. I'm your host, Stel, and today sees the return of our grassroots football special. Now, joining me is Manchester United Academy coach and owner of Specialist Soccer Tours, Tom Statham. Tom, great to have you back on the show. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm great, Stel. Good to be back.
Great to have you back. Now, guys, for you watching, everything Tom says are his views. It's got nothing to do with Manchester United Football Club. This is all Tom, okay? So get that straight from the start. Now, Tom, it's been a little over a year since we last spoke, mate, about the grassroots football and projects you're involved in. I know your diary is just as full as Barack Obama's. So what can you tell us about your activity over the last 12 months or so?
Well, I've been continuing my coaching role in the academy at Manchester United, which has been fantastic. With the young players, I specialise really with the foundation phase age groups, which are this of 8 to 11-year-olds. So working with that level of player, just watching the sort of things they can do is absolutely fantastic. So that's been really good. I've been continuing my role at Repton School, which is a private school in Derbyshire, where I'm the director of football coaching. So I've been working there mostly with their under-18 team. It's called the First 11 team there. So that's been pretty successful as well. We probably won about 80–90% of our games over the last year, so that's gone really well. And then the other thing that I've done, I've been to the States, as usually in June. Go do some coaching and do some coach education seminars out in the States in June. And then August, I spend pretty much all of August doing some tournaments and festivals based at Oakham School, which is another private school. And I've been doing that with academy teams and, again, some teams from the States and so on. So, yeah, very busy coaching, organising events and tournaments and so on.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Well, let's talk about the FA, the Premier League and the Sport England. They've developed this Park Life Football Hubs project, which is supposedly aiming at creating a sustainable model for football facilities around artificial grass pitches or hub sites. Now, I know you've run hubs yourself in the States and Australia. Now, were they well received, or did you notice a difference in attitudes by kids and parents compared to the UK?
I think when I've been to the States and Australia, I've been really lucky. The people are very keen to learn, and I'm very thankful that I've had the great experience that I've had over the last 20 odd years, working with some fantastic coaches and players, and handing over some of the things that I've learned to people out there. So the response has been great. I think it's something that I really feel that at the stage of my career, with my experience, I want to be doing is to interacting with people that work at grassroots level in order to share my experience. So yeah, when I've been to the States, I've done things on a practical level out on the field, helping out coaches going through different scenarios that they might face in their work environment, and also in classrooms, talking a bit more theoretically. Because I think when I've been on coaching courses or I've seen coaching demonstrations, one of the things that's really disappointed me a lot of the time is you'll see a coach or put on a training session. And it might be a great training session, but it's got little or no relevance to what you are doing in your facilities with your players, and so on. Because often they've got great facilities, they've got good footballers, and then maybe back at where you're working, you've not got the best facilities, you've not got a great deal of space, you've not got the equipment. So, what I'd like to develop probably over the next few years is to develop a method of coach education that isn't based on getting qualifications and passing exams. It's more possibly me, like I've done, say, in the States and Australia. It's gone to places, visited their club, so it's in their environment, and almost watched them coach themselves or how they do things. In fact, I've got an offer from a club in Sweden later this year to go and spend some days with them and just observe what they're doing. Almost like a bit like an inspector. When you get your school inspector that comes in, but come in but not be as stressful as a school inspector. But come in, just be there, offer a bit of advice, but it'd be relevant to exactly their environment and what they're doing.
It seems like there's a lot of emphasis on actually getting those coaching badges. I mean, I hear a lot of people saying, "Oh, I need to get this, I need to get that before I can do anything." But the practical side of things seems a bit not neglected, so to speak, but it doesn't seem as important as getting the badges themselves.
Well, I'd say getting your coaching qualifications is important. It's a bit similar to driving license. In order to drive, you need to be able to have a driving license, and and to coach at certain levels, you need the qualifications. And I think anyone starting out on coaching, kids, especially, you should be doing your level 1, level 2 type qualification with FA, because they tell you things about child protection and organization skills and all the basics that you really need to know. And then you can go out and do your own thing. But once you are out there coaching, then what I'd see someone like myself hopefully offering people is much more practical advice, like whilst you're coaching, rather you're not doing something to pass a qualification. It's more, and I'd like to, if I would say, I was working with you, Stel, and you've got a group of kids, it'd be very much us working together, not me telling you how I do it. Oh, this is how I do it at Manchester United or Repton School or wherever I am, and this is what you've got to do. Because again, that might not be relevant to you for the environment and the kids you've got. Is that observing, where you work, observing the level of kids that you've got, observing the facilities, and then discussing with you how we can get you operating with those kids as well as you can be.
So this team in Sweden that you've been invited to visit, would you go there first just to look at their facilities, see what you can work with before creating a plan of action? Or do you have that already, set aside for not a rainy day, so to speak, but, in case this is required?
From what I understand, I'll go there for 4 days, and, I'll arrive. The first day I'll go and observe, coaching sessions, have meetings with their coaches to discuss the philosophy and the ethos of the club, and just watch what they're doing. And then, from my experience, that I've had over a number of years, just give them advice. So I'm not going in there to criticize them or to put them right. What I'm hopefully doing is to observe what they're doing already, give them feedback on that. So everything that I'm sure they'll be doing, a lot of things really well. So say, yeah, this is great. This is fantastic. Have you tried possibly doing this? Have you thought of doing that? And then they can take whatever advice I give them, and maybe some of it they'll put into action, maybe some of them they won't. But I think it's like anything. It'd be nice. We all need someone just to give us a little bit of friendly advice, really, and a bit of a help. And I think that's the role that they're looking for me to do. Again, rather than me coming in and taking their players and doing a couple of training sessions with their players, that's not got a great deal of long-term benefit. Whereas hopefully the few days that I'll spend there working with the coaches, giving them ideas in their world, then hopefully that would be something that would be really helpful to them.
Brilliant, fantastic. Well, let's briefly tread on thin ice here, Andy. Andy Woodward came forward in November and spoke about the abuse he received from a coach as a youngster. Now, have the actions of Coach Barry Bennell affected your role in the sense that parents are more protective or even inquisitive?
I think at the academy level, the levels of child protection and the checks that we have to go through are very high, and certainly, being at a club like Manchester United is very, very serious subject. We've got full-time staff that are concerned with the welfare of children throughout the academy. So, as hopefully a club like Manchester United expect, is that it's absolutely first class. So we're given a lot of training on how to deal with these situations. So it's not what's happened recently hasn't affected me personally in that role. And obviously with Repton School, working in a school, the standards of child protection are very high there as well. So it hasn't affected me personally in either of those coaching roles. I think obviously what a lot of the grassroots coaches, hopefully it will make them aware that working with kids is fantastic. Football and kids are two things. When they put them together, you can have a lot of pleasure and a lot of enjoyment from. But you have to be very careful. You have to make sure that you are following the correct guidelines, because you could put yourself in certain situations that could be very, very dangerous for you. And everyone wants to make sure that the experience is as positive as possible for the coach and the player. And to do that, make sure, again, this is where the FA courses come in. make sure you go on the FA courses and the child protection courses to make sure that you're totally up to date and your knowledge is very current.
That's right. I mean, it's all about protecting themselves, as you mentioned before. And the Offside Trust was created to support individuals and their families who've been subjected to sexual abuse. But off the top of your head, Tom, how do you think coaches can protect themselves or even prove that their intentions are good?
Well, I think you've got to be aware that you're dealing with kids, so that there's certain language and behaviours that are appropriate and inappropriate. I'm very much in favour of giving the kids a great time, having a laugh and a joke, making the kids feel relaxed so that they think that football is the best thing in their life. But obviously, you've got to make sure that your behaviour is consistent and appropriate at all times.
Yeah.
So I think that's a key thing. You can't behave like you would with your mates, socially, that are adults. You can't behave like that when you're with a group of kids. So you have to make sure that that's at the forefront of your mind. And then just things like, if you want to speak to a player on their own, one-to-one, which is something that is very important. If you're working with players, there are times when you speak to the group as a whole, but often a lot of the best information that you can get across to a player is in a one-to-one. That one-to-one is done in public. You don't want to take a young player to one side and in a changing room on your own, because that's a situation that could possibly lead to difficulties. So make sure that you've always got people with you, and that you make sure that there are the witnesses there. Really, I know it's not great to say this, but you've got to make sure that there are people around when you're speaking to kids in those sort of situations.
Or if you're going to say something to them, say it in front of a CCTV camera. It's not easy, isn't it?
It really is that. We all want to. All the coaches want to help the kids, and their enjoyment and their progress is at the forefront of everyone's mind. But we have to be very aware of what's been going on, not just in recent times, but over a long period of time, and make sure that that the people that, unfortunately, people do get into football and other activities to be with children for the wrong purposes. So those people must be found out and must be identified and punished and driven away from football and other activities. But those of us that are in football, it's because we want the kids to have a great time and enjoy themselves in football. We've got to make sure we do it the correct way and follow the correct guidelines.
Agreed. Now, you've been coaching for a fair few years now, so to say the least, and you always felt grassroots football was all about the kids and how it benefits them, not only from a developmental perspective, but also for them to enjoy playing the game, to engage in a healthy lifestyle, and even teach them life lessons. Now, do you have a set strategy or methods to use on a brand new group of kids you work with, or do you try new things each time?
I think generally, if I had a brand new set of kids, so for example, when I do go to the States and I do put on coaching camps, and on the first day, you don't really know the kids at all. So I think the first thing is try and get to learn as many names as possible. I think anyone responds better if you call them by the first name. So when we first spoke today, Steve, I said, "Good morning, Steve. How you doing?" No, sorry, Stel. That was a joke.
Name tag.
No, you got to make sure that you learn names. So, I mean, say you've got a group of say 20 kids that you're working with. Just pick the first 5 kids, learn the first 5 names, and make a big effort to use the names all the time. So, so let's say, Stel, oh, can you do this, Stel? So I'd speak to you. I'd learn the first few names and speak to those first 5 as much as possible. And once I've got those in my head, then I go for the next 5 and learn them. And so I've got half the group. So hopefully within 5 minutes, I've got half the group's names, and constantly repeating myself over and over again in my head. Right, that's Craig, that's Dave, that's Bill, and so on, until I've got all the names. And then hopefully within the first 15 minutes, let's say, you've got all the kids' names. Now, that's something that I prioritize, and I think it pays off, because again, everyone responds well to that. So possibly as well, this ties in with the first activity that I would often do. Is most sessions that I would do, I would always have some sort of small-sided game to start off with. So with older kids, I'd possibly allow them to come and maybe get into groups of 2s and 3s and just knock the ball about a little bit and let themselves warm up gently that way. But certainly with younger kids, I'd have some 2, 3, 4 aside little pitches set out, just little cones for goals possibly, and as they arrive, get them into the team straight away, and that gives a great first environment for them. They're arriving, they're getting into a game, which is what the kids love to do, and it gives you the chance to step back, start asking the names, hopefully as well, you know, the odd little joke here and there. So if someone turns up, like for me with a Man City shirt on, you can start, oh, you're not coming to my session, blah blah blah. Someone turns up with a United shirt on, fantastic. So establishing a relationship with the kids, a little bit of banter, a little bit of fun, try and make them laugh, learn the name, get them playing. I think that's a great start to any session, and certainly with a new group, you know, that's certainly the approach I'd take.
So those are effectively your icebreaker games or activities to create like an instant impact, so to speak. Yeah. Can you think of anything else that may involve children that I don't know, don't have the confidence, or as you can tell from the body language from the off whether a kid is, you know, sure about themselves or, you know, very I don't know, self-conscious. Do you have anything there to kind of get them more involved, or is it very similar to what you've just mentioned?
Yeah, it would be. I think that happens quite regularly. Say these camps that I do in the States is that a kid maybe it may be a club, and this kid's come from outside the club, so he doesn't know many people. He's very unsure. So again, you've got to make lots of fuss of that particular kid. Now, make sure that again you're using the kid's name, that everyone else knows the kid's name. If you see them do anything that's positive, make a good pass or a good save or a good tackle or shot, you know, go over the top with the praise. Fantastic, that was great, and you know, just make them feel as good as possible, because that ultimately, that's what a lot of coaching kids is making them feel as good as possible, making them feel relaxed, making them feel safe. And so they look at you and think, okay, he's on my side, you know, and they start to feel that they can relax and enjoy themselves and express themselves, you know, within the football.
And what about kids that say, I've got, I want to say pushy parents, so to speak. Well, let's say, for example, you've got a child whose father always video records their kid playing football, puts it on social media. My son is the greatest. My son is this. My son is that. But the child really doesn't want to play. How do you go about this? Because obviously the kid's being thrown in by the parent. Play. The kid doesn't really want to. He'd rather play hockey, for example. How would you not persuade them to play, but how would you work around this? Because you can't exactly turn around and say to the parent, well, listen, they don't want to play. This is how you got to treat your kid, you know, because you're kind of, you know, telling them how to be a parent.
I'd say, firstly, again, in academy football, then there's no filming. You know, the parents aren't allowed to film games or train or anything like that. So that's not a situation that I come across really in that world. But hypothetically, if I was somewhere and someone was putting that amount of pressure on their kid, then, you know, you're quite right, you have to be very careful, because telling someone how to bring up their own child is not the right way to go. But I think, again, taking the parent to one side, explaining the situation, you know, saying, do you appreciate that by having this sort of behavior, you know, your child feels like this, your child feels under pressure, you know, child's not enjoying it, and just let them realize exactly how their behavior is affecting their own child. And hopefully from that conversation they would back off. Again, it's difficult because everyone's in different circumstances, but ultimately, if a kid didn't want to play, if a kid would rather be playing hockey, then, you know, maybe that's the best thing for them. You know, this is supposed to be play, it's supposed to be enjoyable. You know, if they're getting more enjoyment from playing hockey, go and play hockey. But I appreciate that that's a very delicate situation. I think you've got to be very tactful in that situation.
Brilliant. Now, I'm not sure if you read this, but Ronaldinho wrote this remarkable and I'd like to say inspirational letter to his 8-year-old self, you know, talking about how his future would be if he does things a certain way. And there's one line that really stood out, and it reminded me of our previous conversations. And this one line, he was telling himself to give Lionel Messi a bit of advice, and it was, tell him, play with happiness, play free, just play with the ball. I mean, again, I've heard you use the term adultize when describing modern day coaching, especially at grassroots level. Do you think this attitude is changing, or is coaching in the UK at grassroots level still stuck in this robotic, structured factory setting?
I and because I work in a private school and in academies, I don't have that much contact with grassroots football on a regular basis. Again, this is something that hopefully I might change in the future, and get involved with some clubs or organisations, to pass on my experience. But I really think that the enjoyment of the game and love of the game is the most important thing. So if you're involved with kids football, then that has got to be right at the top of your list of priorities when you're dealing with the group that you're with. So everything that you do must be done with that aim of making sure they have a fantastic time. So when you turn up, whether you're working with 7-year-olds or 17-year-olds, you've got to approach training sessions, games with the number one aim is they have a great time. And I can only speak from the worlds that I work in, but sometimes I do see adults come to situations with kids where the priority is for them to show how wonderful they are, how much they know about the game, what a great coach they are, what a great person they are, and they almost use the kids to get over those points to possibly their boss or anyone watching, parents and so on, to show how fantastic they are. And I really think that's the wrong approach. You have to make sure that you go into that situation thinking at the end of this, those kids have got to go away from this session or game thinking that was the best part of their week. And so everything that you do, everything that you do during that session or that game, you've got to have that at your forefront of your mind. So when you're planning, I would look at planning things. Say, right, will the kids enjoy this? And if I want to get a certain coaching point over, how can I do it? But how can I do it in a way that's going to be as much fun as possible and enjoyable as possible? And sometimes I have to admit, especially working at Repton School with the under-18 team, where that's the school's first 11 team. It's the flagship team. It is important. They're in cups and they have big games where the result is very important. So you've got to go into that situation quite seriously. So we do have to do some tactical work and some team shape. So often I'll flag up and say, look, this is a part of the training session where you do need to concentrate. It's not going to be the best part of it. It's not going to be the most enjoyable part of it, but we need to do this in order to get the performance. When you're working, I think the people respond to that as well. That you say this part of it, come on, we're gonna concentrate because it's vital for the performance because we want to win. Lower down with younger kids, there's not a situation in my mind where you have to win any games. Everything is purely about the enjoyment for those kids. So everything that you do, whether you're trying to help them with passing or dribbling or shooting, any aspect of the game, decision making, things like this, then it can always be done in a way where they can have a fantastic time.
See, the thing is, when you look at all these youngsters that play football now, ultimately their goal is to be like their idols, like your Messis, like your Ronaldos. If you were to ask any of the world-class players, look, let's face it, there are a lot of footballers that actually don't like being footballers, believe it or not. I'm sure you've heard it before from certain players or past players. They've even though they're playing football and they enjoy it, they actually don't want to be footballers. It's bizarre. But then when you look at all the world's greats, like your Maradonas, your Pelés, your Ronaldos, your Messis, Figos, not one of them was a footballer that said, I've never enjoyed it. They always enjoyed it. They enjoyed playing it. It was they felt it as an honor that they were living their dream. But at the same time, they enjoyed playing football. They trained after they continued training after training sessions. They stayed behind 3 or 4 hours afterwards to improve their game. They even trained on their own without a coach because they had that freedom to express themselves without being told what to do. And you can have that till the age of 35 to 40, 45. It doesn't matter how. Football is a universal game. You can coach people, you can teach them techniques, but ultimately, if you don't enjoy it and you're not happy with the ball at your feet, it's not for you.
Absolutely, and you think of Wayne Rooney when he was at his peak. He wanted to play every game. Someone at the moment like Alexis Sanchez at Arsenal, he wants to play every single game, and they get very upset when they're left out. And that's because as a child, that love of the game was just driving them. And I think you're quite right. Without that, no matter how good you are, if you've not got that love of the game from an early age, then football does become a bit of a chore and a bit of a job. And some people are very good at it, so they do make a living out of it. But you definitely go further, and you'll have much more enjoyment and pleasure if that love of the game is in you from an early age. So when you turn that round as an adult involved with young kids, whether it's at academy level or club level, grassroots level, then you have to recognize that that is the most important thing that you must nurture. You must not damage that at all. So when you get a group of kids at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, then them nurturing that love of the game is absolutely vital, above everything else, above any technical or tactical aspects of the game that you think that you want to put across. It's got all to be put in that context of love of the game. So that's something you're quite right. I've banged on about this for many years, and you're quite right about the adultification of kids football is something that gives me a great deal of distress, really, because just like you said, that kids want to be like their heroes. A lot of coaches that you come into contact with want to be like Arsene Wenger, Jose Mourinho, Jurgen Klopp, and therefore they use the children as their pawns almost to try and use them to make them feel like they are that particular manager or coach at that time. Whereas that's not the case. You're not a top manager. You are someone that's got the privilege and the pleasure of working with young kids, and you've got to appreciate that, and you've got to make sure that you approach everything you do recognizing they're children, and they're not mini adults, they're children, and you've got to make sure that you treat them. So a question of why do kids play sport, why do kids play football, everyone should ask themselves that question. And there's a lot of research out there. Just one survey or one piece of research that I've become familiar with is from the George Washington University in the States, where they asked kids about why they're involved with sport. And obviously the bit of fun and enjoyment is right at the top of the list. And when they were asked even more detail on that, is what is fun? What do kids enjoy about sport? And we're talking specifically about football, and it's things like trying the best. Kids enjoy trying the best. Kids enjoy being treated with respect by the coaches, by adults. So they gain respect from their teammates and from adults. That's important to them. Getting playing time is really important. So if you're a coach of a grassroots team and you don't play everyone equal playing time, then I think you really need to think about what you're doing. You shouldn't be playing, you got someone as a sub that you put them on for the last 5 minutes when the game's over. That's not right. You've got to give everyone, in my mind, certainly up to sort of 10, 11 years old, everyone should get equal playing time, and even beyond. So there's no point if you train and you come to practices and then the game's there and you don't really play much in the game, then that's going to affect that kid's love of the game. So I think that's vital. Kids enjoy being part of a team. So again, you've got to make sure that everyone's involved, everyone's together. So all these things, when you say we want to give them fun, I think it's important to understand what is fun for kids, understand the mentality of the people that you're working with.
Fantastic. Well, Tom, thank you ever so much for agreeing to appear on the show, mate. Your time has been, well and truly appreciated. I hope we can come back on and do this on a regular basis, because I know it's going to benefit a lot of our grassroots supporters and whatnot, and they can come in and get more interactive with you and get in contact with you. I mean, how can they get in touch and ask you questions and whatnot? Twitter, Facebook?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @TomS_soccer. And people want to do that. I mean, this is a great forum, Stel, that you've opened up, where what would be great is to have questions from people, circumstances that they find themselves in, with different situations, that if they want some help, then I'd be happy to help them with that. And or contact me through your organization as well, Shoot the Defence.
Fantastic. Well, guys, you can follow us on Twitter @ShootTheDefence. We'll be back very soon. Take care.